Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Sure Babe. This is episode 35. I am so excited today for a new series with Sam. We're going to be talking all about how our premarital class failed us. So, in essence, this is our own premarital class, so to speak, or our own marriage class, you could say, and what we wish we knew when we were getting engaged. So yeah, we're pretty open and real and honest about what it's like right now, in the throes of raising small children and being married. And it's just super fun to open up and share, what a real marriage looks like when you're both trying to do the work and be the best person that you're meant to be, not just for each other, but for yourselves and for your family. So I hope you guys like this. Without further ado, here is our first episode of this series on how our premarital class failed us. Hello, 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 Sure Babe listeners. This is Chrissy and Sam. Sorry, that was a really weird intro.
What is going on? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I'm so excited that we're in our house alone. That sounds really bad that our children aren't here, but we are recording another podcast episode together because the consensus is that you need to be on the show more, babe.
Okay.
Sure, babe.
I'm sure. Sure, honey.
So we are back recording together.
And we've done some other things. We've been really busy. And we were thinking about topics recently of what we could discuss, and we came up with one that maybe some of you guys will relate, some you won't, but you can take what you can get from what we've learned. Right. Sorry, I was going to say, I think most people probably don't do premarital classes, but that's so
giving things away before.
Exactly. So what we were going to do, the other day we were talking about things that we wish we would have known before we got married. And we're 9 years in. We'll be 10 in February.
Yeah.
So we're going to hit a decade. Wow, that sounds a long time.
Yeah.
A decade of being married. And before we got married, we went through a premarital class.
At our church.
Yes. And was it like 8 weeks?
I don't even think it was 8 weeks.
6 weeks?
It was far too short and far too surfacey because I texted him and I was like, babe, I have the best idea for a new podcast series that we can talk about, ... how our premarital class failed us. And he wrote back, that's genius, because we laugh all the time about just how funny our premarital class was. We talked about sex and finances and Discord, but even the people they asked to come and talk about these things were out of it. They were retired, their kids were out of the house, and we were just laughing because I was like, they need to have us come into that group and be like, we got 3 kids, we are exhausted, we're not sleeping, and we haven't had sex in 2 months. Just kidding, that's not true. And whoa. We're making it work.
Whoa.
I'm just that was an inflation.
Okay. Well, the thing is we don't want to paint the class, and we don't want to paint premarital classes as a bad thing. We're not.
Oh, no,
we're not discounting. What we kind of wish is that maybe there was a 6-month, 20-week class that kind of bridged more things that we would be facing.
Basically getting down to the nitty-gritty. So welcome to Sam and Chrissy's premarital class. Basically, that's what we're saying. Welcome to our premarital course.
And how it didn't really help us that much. And maybe we just are bad listeners.
No, we were like, that's not real anymore. You don't just light a candle on the side of your bed when you want to have sex. That doesn't work, which is
being intimate.
Sorry. Which is what one of the tips they talked about when we laughed so hard. So we're going to go through some of the ways our premarital class failed us. And we're going to talk about some real stuff that might help you guys right now in your relationships if you are kind of in that
place. At least make sure that you don't feel alone.
Right, that's the goal in this podcast.
In this phase. So we should recap. I'm 41. Chrissy's 37. We have 3 kids, 7, almost 4, and 1.
And we don't have much time for each other.
It's a miracle we're sitting down to do this. Right. We've tried to do this.
We've tried to do this for a couple months, which is why there hasn't been another couples podcast. But we're going to just try to prioritize that a little bit more. I have some sneaky ideas up my sleeve to get a babysitter here once a week and do this. But
okay,
let's go into the first one. Conflict. How did our premarital class fail us in teaching us about conflict?
Well, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. So I think in premarital classes, and if any of you have taken premarital classes, they don't really talk about how really angry.
Yeah.
When you're married, and when you're first married, and if you don't have kids, how hard it is to really be married. And when you get into those first couple, like you're yelling at each other, you're probably calling each other names. You could be slamming doors, or our class did not say, hey.
Let's just clarify, abuse is not okay.
No, abuse is not okay. But I'm just saying that some
slamming
people get physically elevated. They never went like, hey, your physiological body is going to get so ramped up on those first couple fights, or you're already ramped up, that you're not going to be able to control what you say, and you're going to probably throw a bunch of darts and arrows and hand grenades at your significant other, which they're going to throw back. Some's going to explode all over you, and you're going to get just annihilated. So
violent, babe.
But that's what it feels like.
That's how it feels like.
That's what it feels like, especially when you move into a legally married space, or a long-term couple, or your significant other of choice. When you start getting into that conflict, they were like, it's fine, you just need to talk it out, give the other person space. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Oh my gosh, I hear that, and that just drives me.
I used to feel really guilty in the beginning of our marriage if we went to bed angry because of that Bible verse and because of that being drilled into us from such a young age. And then I eventually stopped feeling guilty because I realized there were some nights where it was not healthy. Let me finish this. There are some nights where it was not healthy for us to keep talking because we kept wounding each other more. We kept saying things that we didn't mean, and then we would get back into the negative cycle of what we were even fighting about. And then sometimes we would forget what we were fighting about.
And just be fighting
because we were so heightened emotionally and so wounded. So I feel like our premarital class failed us in teaching us about conflict because they did not prepare us for how wounded we were individually getting into marriage.
Yes.
And that is the truth, is that Sam has his own wounds from childhood and life and experience, as I do too. I have my own different wounds, and that when you get married, you guys touch those buttons. You will touch your spouse's buttons of wounds, and
you don't touch them. You punch them.
Okay, you punch.
It's the kids.
But it is also a beautiful thing because it is the thing that can help bring those to the surface more than any other relationship,
and help heal those wounds, or at least have someone that will help you walk in that journey to heal those wounds.
Right.
The hard part is that they didn't really give us real life examples of hey, your wife's going to do this and it's just going to drive you insane. And they never said.
I think they did. They gave us the example of the toothpaste. That's the one I remember. They said, now your spouse might roll the toothpaste up and you might just slide it up, or something weird like that. Squeeze it from the middle, and that just might irk you, but you're just going to have to learn how to love them because of their differences. And it was like, oh, that's so cute. I could love him no matter how he squeezes the toothpaste. And then it was like...
Then you wake up one morning and they're like, if you squeeze this toothpaste from the middle one more time. And
I'm like, wow, if that were our biggest conflict, that would be amazing. But it wasn't. It was other things.
And you know what they didn't tell you is that all the things that you let slide when you're dating, because you're like, oh, that's just cute, becomes incredibly annoying when you get married.
I think they did tell us that.
Did they?
But
they didn't emphasize it enough.
Maybe they didn't emphasize that.
Or maybe I didn't take notes.
But it is true. Maybe you didn't. You were just, We were in premarital class and we were just googly-eyed over each other, which is like amazing. But I'm sorry, when you were in that phase, it's a high and you're not really learning that much because you're just so enamored with this other person that they would choose me. You're not in love at that phase. No, we were in love.
No, we were in love with the feeling.
I still love
We're more in love now because we are in the action of loving each other. We were in the feeling love.
We were in the lust part.
Yes.
That was true.
Now we're really in love because we're...
Well, I like how you put that. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I am right. I know this.
We choose love now more than ever, and our relationship is better for that. But one other thing with conflict that is interesting, that this is one thing I did get out of the premarital class, was when we took this, it's called the TJTA. It's a temperament test.
Yes.
And it showed us our temperaments and how well we like welded or whatever, meshed well together as a couple, and we came up as the idealized couple. That was like the best couple you could get, and I was like, yes, we are perfect, we are meant for each other, I did good picking this guy. And I was just so on this, like, I didn't even look at the bad parts of the test, which there are for every couple, even if you're vitalized. There's parts where it's like, oh, your spouse or your partner-to-be came up really high on this scale of anger or hostility. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And our counselor at the time said, now that's going to come out on you in the future. And I just was like, oh, he could never be that way to me. That's just for... the people that wrong him or the things that annoy him, that he could never be that way towards me. And I literally remember in the first year of our marriage, which we've talked about before, was really difficult. And I remember her words and it was in our fights, in our worst fights. I was like, yeah, she was right. Like that pain, whatever in that wound that was caused to have you be high on that negative scale or it was hostile. Let me just say it was hostile. You were hostile, high on the hostile scale. And I was like, yeah, I saw that come out towards me. And so I feel like before you get married, or if you're in a marriage, you have to then be honest with yourself and realize that pain and hurt is going to be projected onto you. The goal is figuring out how to work through that as a couple.
Yes.
Working through your own individual pain so that you're no longer just projecting it onto the other person, but you're both having empathy for each other.
Yes.
In it.
Yes.
I like that.
100%.
Any other things you want to talk about in the conflict?
Conflict, what I think, if I could go back and tell myself now.
The dance. We should talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think I was going to kind of.
Oh, sorry.
What I think that I wish they would have been, or we would have been more aware of, is the conflict cycle or the dance in emotional focus therapy. That every couple has an emotional pursuer and an emotional withdrawer. And what happens, you have to have one in every couple because they complement each other. It's the yin and the yang. It's the black and white. It's the balance. Even if if there's two individuals that are both pursuers, one will revert to the emotional withdrawer. What I wish that we would have learned more, or they would have taught us more, is a little bit of how to get out or tools to see, hey, you're going into this cycle where you're mad at your partner, she's withdrawing or he's withdrawing, you're coming at them, with what you're projecting, and you're getting more frustrated because they're not reciprocating or they're not catching that what you're trying to put out. And that is something, when you can find that balance, and we're talking about like when you do have a conflict and you both are hurt, and not going from bad to back to good, but going to the neutral place where you both can work on that.
Yeah. Because
that is something that I think going from that conflict and then going to a place where you can both go, okay, the things that I said, I was elevated. I don't want you to,
Yeah.
I don't want that, what I said, I don't want that to, I was in the moment, I was, and then each partner saying like, okay, we need to work on this. I hear what you're saying, but
I think that if you catch the cycle or the dance, it's the same thing. If you know that you have that, if each couple knows there's going to be a dance, we're going to do this dance. Sometimes it's great dance. Sometimes it's like we're doing great, but then other times it's a negative cycle that we're going through. And if we can focus on that and notice that this is what's happening instead of the hurt and the pain, I feel like that's when you can resolve things better. And there wasn't much talk about that. And I feel like that was new to us in our marriage. When we started going to therapy, we learned, it's a cycle of like who triggered who and the pain that we were feeling. So,
and one other thing about the cycle that I wish they would have maybe talked about a little bit is that even when you are doing good, are both partners doing good? Like emotionally, are they both feeling their needs met? Are they both feeling connected?
Are you trying to tell me something?
No, no. I'm just saying that, like, that's something that I wish they would have described, because I think that sometimes what happens in marriage, one partner will be doing great, the other partner will be putting work in, but they might not be feeling like they're doing okay.
Is that the other partner's fault though?
No, but that also goes in with the emotional pursuer, emotional withdrawer. Yeah. So that's something.
There was something too that I don't know if I learned it from school, but you cannot take on the other person's pain as your own. Like when Sam would come home from work every day and just be exhausted, and there were different jobs that he was on that just really took a lot out of him. And I, as a new wife, took that on as like, I'm not making him happy. How could I make him happy? What am I doing wrong? And it was hard because it felt like it was my fault when it wasn't. And so then I had to learn not to take on that pain of yours, or that, like, no, it wasn't my fault. I could still be happy even if you hated your job. Or I could be there for you. I could have empathy.
Had a really bad day, or was just in a season where it was taking a lot out.
Exactly. So I had to learn that. I had to learn that it was not my job to make you happy. It is not your job to make your spouse or your partner happy.
No.
You can hear that from us here first. All right, let's go to do one more. Let's talk about money. Woo, we could do a whole episode on this.
Oh my gosh.
This inevitably is the thing that we fight about the most. Or, well, now it's probably parenting. But in the past, it was money.
Well, here's the thing.
And our relationships around it.
What I think our class did not put enough emphasis on how hard it is to actually talk about money in marriage and finances. And there's always a saver, there's always a spender. And then when you come together, how do those things affect how you move in your relationship together? Yeah. And that was something that I think they had an older guy that was like a financial advisor, was like, save money, buy stocks. And it was like, okay, well, that's great. I don't have any money.
Well,
and at this point, like,
yeah.
It's like, okay, and that's something, especially nowadays, and now in our culture now too, they don't talk about like, oh, hey, you're getting married, your significant other has $60,000 in student loans. Well, that's your debt too now. They didn't talk about like, oh, hey, you've got a huge credit card debt, you get married, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, where's all our money going? It's like, well, I got to pay off this debt. Right. That would have been so helpful, like being like, okay, like I got mad at her once because she bought organic blueberries instead of regular blueberries, and now I think about it, I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But
I used to hide my Target bags. I used to have to hide them. I would buy something like, we're talking like shampoo and conditioner. I'm a changed man now. So that I hope you know that these are things that we don't. Okay, well, let's get to why you were like that, because I could see why. I have empathy for you now, because you were totally triggered, because here I come in thinking you didn't know, like, this is how women operate. These are the things they have to buy. Like, these are, toiletries that women buy. And so anyways, I would hide the Target bags because I just didn't want to fight over. I didn't want him to be like, what'd you buy? What'd you get? And I'm like, I knew, because he was asking to calm himself down because he was super anxious about what I was spending. But what it was that I feel like now couples need to talk about is the relationship behind money. So I came from a different upbringing.
And the family of origin, and like what we're talking about is how you grew up and your relationship with money.
I just said that.
Yeah, but you totally did, huh?
I did. I just said that.
I'm sorry. I was trying to make.
Okay.
And it's.
Anyways,
yes.
That's what I was saying. I'll let you talk.
No.
I come from a different upbringing, a different relationship around money. I don't have a scarcity mentality. I mean, sometimes I do, but for the majority part, I've always just seen the glass half full. And Sam came from a different upbringing where there were times of plenty and times of not. And so me as a wife having empathy for him in that is so real for him that he feels it in his being that is so fearful that there might not be enough. And I had to have empathy for that, even though it did kind of come back like in our marriage to be a big conflict.
And I'm going to speak from, and it's even harder, like as a guy, as a husband, especially when you're like, okay, I got to provide, I got to be awesome. I don't want my wife to go without or my kids to go without, and there's, I think what happens is there's a lot of insecurity about that, especially being a guy, that you don't.
Did they talk about that in the premarital class?
Of course not. Because now, like.
So what would you say to a young guy now that's getting married when he finds like, I got to provide and because I'm like, yeah, of course we all need to provide.
What I would this goes to gender roles, and egalitarian household, and what I would probably say, because this was 10 years ago, and things have changed, especially, what I would probably just go, whatever image that you have of who you think or what it's going to look like, you're going to be like, I'm going to be the head of the household. I'm going to provide for my little lady, whatever. I'd be like, toss those out.
Yeah.
No. Do away with whatever expectation.
Yeah.
Go, hey, how did your parents deal with money? When there was a financial crisis, was there scarcity? Did that make you scared? Did you fear that? As a kid, what if you heard your parents fighting about money, or did you grow up with a ton of money? And what happens when you get married and you go, oh, I don't have as much money? Because
here's a good question. I would say, ask your partner, if you inherited this much money, like let's say 10 grand, how would you spend it?
That's a great question. That is a great question, because in every relationship, there's going to be one that's like the saver, one that's the spender. And an amount of money, even a gift, it's going to be like you're each going to have a different viewpoint of how to spend it.
I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that you can still marry someone that comes from the same sort of upbringing you that might want to save, but it's what are they saving for, or how they're spending money. You inevitably will have differences in how to save
100%,
or what to save for,
and
or
what to spend the money on.
Right. So that's what I would say is like, how do you spend that money? If you earned $10,000, what would you do with it?
And another quick question would be like, why? Like, explain the reasoning, because what are you feeling? What does that? You get something. Mm-hmm. Okay, some people will be like, I'm going to save it for 10 years. Some people are like, hey, we're going to buy a new car, or we're going on vacation, whatever. It's like, well, okay, what is driving? And that goes back to the family of origin, and then your relationship with money, and what does that mean? So that, because all those things, if you can dissect some of that, you'll be so much better off. You're going to reduce the arguments that we've had, and that we're probably
you could skip a year of argument. Okay. So I just had this thought of when we were first married. The first year, we fought nonstop about this one issue because I wanted to go on a big trip, an international trip with Sam. So I literally was saving money on the side for a trip. I didn't know where. I couldn't even get him on board to talk about it. I couldn't even get him to talk about where he would want to go because that was so foreign to him that we were newly married. We didn't have like a ton of money in the bank, but it was like we didn't even have kids yet. So to me, I was like, let's spend our money that we're saving on this big trip and this big experience and adventure. And if we both had like the emotional capacity to just sit down and he could ask me why that's important, and I could say to him, oh gosh, because I come alive when I see the world, and because I want to share that with you, and I want to make new memories before we get more tied down with like mortgage and kids, and it just means so much to me to see the world with you. And if he were a little bit more open to that, which at the time he was not, I feel like that would have saved us some arguments. But that was literally an example of a fight we had over money for the first year of our marriage.
And I think because we could talk about this forever. The one thing that I also was thinking about when we're listening to this.
Yeah.
What I wish they would have kind of given us a framework was how to deal with just the stress of getting married and being married in that first year. Because that first year is hard.
Yeah. Oh, we're skipping gears now to the stress?
No. I was just sorry. I'm thinking.
I totally stressed you out.
No, because the money, like money, like okay. All of the things that we're going to probably talk, conflict, money, mental health, parenting.
Here's a question. Were you so stressed about money in the beginning of our marriage because you had this idea that we needed to be in a different place? Like we needed to have more in the bank. You had to provide for me.
Probably.
Yeah. So if you could go back now and tell yourself 10 years ago, Sam.
I'd slap Sam in the face.
Be like, you need to travel more.
Dude, you got to
enjoy. Take that girl out on some dates.
And
the dating stopped right after we got married.
I'm going to say this. She was right. I was wrong.
I was right.
But I've been right before, too. It's not as common. True. It's not as often.
No, we ended up going on that trip before we had Waylon. We weren't pregnant yet. And we went on a trip to Australia. Incidentally, we went on our friend's honeymoon. That's a long story, but somehow we ended up on their honeymoon, and it was really awesome. But literally, we fought so much on that trip because we just weren't really meshing.
I try to forget all that stuff. He was
so worried. I know, he forgets all the fighting, and he talks about how much fun it was, and I'm like, that trip was not that great. No, there were times that were really great.
It was really cool.
It was good for our marriage to go it was so good for Sam to see that we could do that and then not lose money, and still be okay. Still be able to pay for groceries when we got back.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, got sidetracked. No, I was just thinking, if you could go back and tell yourself 10 years ago now, you'd say, you are okay. You don't need to be where we're at right now.
Yes.
Like, we've been married 10 years. We've acquired more. We've worked harder. But you don't need to necessarily have what you think you need to have right when you get married. You can do that together, and you can grow together, which is part of the beauty of marriage, is doing all of that together and growing together.
And I think that's what kind of what we're getting at too, is with how the premarital class did not help us, is it did not help either of us bring our expectations down to reality.
Man, you just read my mind.
Because
I was going to say expectations, yeah.
Because there is nothing worse in a relationship, almost nothing worse, than having ideals and expectations of what it's supposed to look like, and then you get married and your partner has ideals and expectations, and both of those come together into one giant, colossal power struggle.
I wish you all could see Sam's hand movements right now.
I just took two fists and I just put them together.
One hand up with a salute, and then the other hand up with a salute, and then they became fists, and then they hit together in the middle. And that is expectations that you should not have in marriage.
Because
I do think there are expectations that we all have. Of course, we have expectations in marriage. We expect this person to be safe for us. We expect them to be faithful to us. We expect so many good things, and that is all great. But I think it's good to have a conversation about expectations. Like, for me, I expected to be able to go on a trip with you and travel before we had kids. I expected to have kids, like, when I was 30, or at least by the time I was 30, and he had no clue. He was like, wait, what? You want to have kids right now? And I was yeah, my biological clock is ticking.
Well, and I think, too, now it's even harder because we have comparison culture. So, luckily, when we got married, there was no Instagram.
Oh, yeah. That was another big thing. You were like, just because so-and-so bought a car, we don't need to buy that. Or just because so-and-so did that doesn't mean...
And I think what people don't realize is that really affects your outlook in your relationship.
It's statistically, it does, yeah.
And it's not that... I don't think there's anything wrong with engaging in social media. I don't think... But when that is your benchmark of what people are doing and what people are getting and where they're... what they're eating, guess what? There's been times... we had, basic salad at our table. We're not eating at a fancy restaurant. And there's been times where we drove kind of beater cars. I still drive
You still do.
I still do it because I just don't care. And I think what happens is we kind of were on that earlier wave of social media. Now, for people that are getting married now, it's like, thank God we didn't have Instagram when we got married or Pinterest. Yeah. I couldn't imagine how hard it would have been to get through that or even navigate.
Planning a wedding was so hard because Sam wanted to be involved with everything.
I have opinions. That? Yes, I have opinions.
Oh, man. He had so many opinions about, the colors. We're talking the bridesmaid's dress. He had opinions about it all, which I think is actually really endearing now.
It was my wedding too.
It was. Yes, he kept saying that.
It's my wedding.
My wedding too. And I was like, you're right. But I have been planning this day since I was 10 years old. So don't you screw it up.
And that's all expectations. It's all expectations.
It really is.
And so
it really is.
What I wish we would have had was a framework for those kind of discussions of what we're both expecting. It's like, it's like, I think, and to be married and to have a successful marriage, you have to go, hey, this is what I was expecting. This is not what's happening, but not be angry about it. Yeah. Go, okay, well, was it me that and do the self-reflection of is this my expectation and I'm projecting it on my significant other? And the thing that we talked about in the other podcast was your marriage doesn't start till you wake up and you're like, I can't look at your partner and you're like, I can't believe I'm married to this person. That was from Psychology Today. We talked about that in the other one.
Wait, are you saying that I'm like, I can't believe I'm married to this beautiful person? Or are you saying,
oh my God,
I can't believe I'm married to this person? How are you saying that?
Well, I think I was saying it in the latter.
Oh,
but that's when marriage starts, because that's when you start to do the work.
Yeah.
And you start to go.
So if you are there right now, you guys, just know this is the good stuff. I know it doesn't feel like it. It hurts. It's a growing pain. We hurt each other all the time. We wound each other all the time. But our other choice is it's either leave or do the work. And we decided we're not going to do that. We're not. That's way easier. And Sam says, I'd rather fight with you than be divorced or something. What did you say?
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather fight with you.
I would rather, no, like, and
than someone else or something like that.
Now, and I'm just saying, like, if you're married to someone that is just not safe.
Yeah, that is, we do need to do a disclaimer on that.
This is, what I'm saying is that it's easy to give up. It's super easy to give up.
It's super easy to give up because there's so many ways that
and there's so many distractions now that you're like, well, fine, I can go do whatever. Like, the thing is,
but yeah, I do want to disclaim that if you are being abused, please tell someone
and
do not feel like you have to stick with that. Because you know, like, abuse is a whole nother ballgame. So
yeah, what we're saying is that if you're in a committed couple, you're a committed couple in a relationship. Guess what? You're gonna hit some times they're gonna suck, and
it's okay to think, how did I end up with this person?
Yes.
How did I marry this person? They aren't the same person. It's okay to think that.
Yes.
If I had someone telling me that in the first year of our marriage, well, I did. We had a really good therapist. But I wish that I had someone like that was kind of in at my age saying, no, this is normal. This is okay. And so we'll be those people for you.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel like, gosh, how did I end up with this person?
And we're going to go into several other topics as we go through this series.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap this up.
Because, hey, you think marriage is hard? Throw kids in the mix.
So next week, we're going to be talking about money, mental health, and parenting and sex. I don't know if we'll get to all those, but
no, we're not going to get to all this.
This is an amazing, I'm so excited for this series. We're just going to keep talking about how our premarital class failed us and how we would do it now. So, and here, we're going to leave a couple. Oh my gosh. I mean, premarital class.
Oh my word. Okay. With this send out, we're going to give you a couple things to give you hope. If you're married and it's hard, that means you're married to another person that is going to help you unlock and help you heal from the pain that you're carrying. You're going to do that for them. If you guys are in a relationship and you feel stuck, get help. Go see a therapist. Yep. There's nothing wrong with getting the help that you need. Guys, get help. Because for us guys, it's hard, especially when being in a relationship. Like, to go, okay, I feel completely inadequate. Like, it's hard. If you have to go to a therapist and you have to talk about it, talk about it with a therapist. And then you can go, all right, I can be a better husband. I can not unload on my wife, because I'm carrying all this stuff, this stress and all this stuff. There is nothing wrong with getting help. The other thing, kids, we love them. They make it harder, but have kids because they're fun and they're amazing. And you kind of get to live childhood over again.
But toys. If you don't have kids yet, just really enjoy each other.
Yes, and enjoy the time.
And go on a big vacation.
Gosh,
all right. But mic drop, we are out. Are you done, babe?
I'm done.
All right.
Sure, babe.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for joining us.
And please rate and review the podcast on iTunes.
Or wherever you listen.
Or Stitcher, or whatever streaming platform you listen to the podcast on. Any ratings and reviews always help us put out more content. And we love you guys. Thank you.
Peace. That's so
Gee
dorky.
whiz.